Welcome back, everyone. I am so thrilled to have you here for another explainer. Today, we're tackling something absolutely massive. We're looking at the intersection of our highest global ambitions and the bleeding edge of tech. Basically, how artificial intelligence is crashing headfirst into the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, the 2030 Global Blueprint. Then, grading the world's progress. Third, AI meets the SDGs. Fourth, the double-edged sword. And finally, leading a sustainable future. Kicking things off with Part 1, the 2030 Global Blueprint, establishing the UN's goals for our future. So to really grasp how tech might shape our future, we first got to understand the goals built to protect it. At their core, the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, well, they're essentially a master plan. Created by the UN to replace the old Millennium Development Goals, this whole framework runs on a super strict timeline from 2015 to 2030. And we aren't just talking about a couple of vague ideas here. There are 17 overarching goals, which break down into a whopping 169 specific, measurable targets. Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. Imagine trying to get your own neighborhood to agree on 169 specific rules, right? Now imagine doing that with the entire planet. It is literally the most ambitious checklist in human history. I know, when you hear 169 targets created by the UN, it kind of sounds like a whole lot of dry, abstract bureaucracy. But I absolutely love this quote because it grounds all of that into one unified human purpose. The mission is simply a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. Back in August of 2015, 193 countries actually agreed to this exact vision. Just to make this framework highly tangible, let's look at a few of the most recognizable goals on the list. We're talking about absolute bare minimum human necessities here. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, clean water, climate action. These aren't just pie-in-the-sky political concepts. They are the fundamental requirements for human survival and economic stability. They directly dictate the health of global supply chains, the stability of local communities, and really the everyday lives of populations everywhere. These are the foundational pillars of what the world is collectively trying to achieve. Moving right along to Part 2, grading the world's progress, the 2026 reality check. When we look at the data derived directly from the 2026 Sustainable Development Report, which ranks 169 UN member states on their overall progress, the contrast is, well, it's pretty stark. At the very top, you have the highest performers in the world, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark leading the pack. But then, on the other end of the spectrum, you see nations like South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and Chad struggling immensely. If you dig into the source material, this massive disparity is largely driven by deep structural inequalities. The nations at the top, they have immense resource backing. Meanwhile, the struggling nations are actively fighting against a total lack of foundational infrastructure, critical funding gaps, and in lots of cases, really complex geopolitical conflict. The playing field is just nowhere near level. Now, what's really fascinating is Finland's leading score, 87.40. That is the score of the #1 performing country on Earth right now. But you might be wondering, what exactly does an 87.40 actually mean in this context? Basically, the score represents the percentage of SDG achievement. A perfect score of 100 would mean that all 17 Sustainable Development Goals have been 100% achieved, which means that even the absolute best performing nation in the entire world, Finland, is still missing the mark by over 12%. With the 2030 deadline looming closer and closer every single day, it is crystal clear that traditional methods simply aren't working fast enough. We have a massive global gap to close. And that brings us to Part 3, AI meets the SDGs, shifting from political goals to technological capabilities. Because time is seriously running out. We're seeing this massive shift away from relying solely on political tracking and instead moving toward leveraging cutting-edge tech solutions. Artificial intelligence has this insane ability to process vast amounts of data, spot patterns, and automate incredibly complex decision-making. For SDG 13, climate action, AI models are crunching decades of atmospheric data in literally minutes to predict extreme weather events with an accuracy that older models couldn't even touch. And for SDG 6, clean water, AI systems are actively monitoring water pressure across miles of municipal grids to detect microscopic pipeline leaks. That alone is saving hundreds of thousands of gallons of clean, treated drinking water that would have otherwise just seeped into the ground through aging infrastructure. It's a real game changer. But hey, it's not just about the environment, right? AI maps directly to societal and economic goals too. Take SDG 16, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions. AI is currently being deployed to scan millions of banking transactions and procurement records in a matter of seconds, instantly flagging financial fraud or corruption anomalies that human auditors might miss for decades. Meanwhile, for SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, AI isn't just about automation. It's actually supporting entirely new avenues of job creation. We're seeing localized tech repair, data compliance, and AI-assisted agriculture creating thriving jobs that literally didn't even exist 5 years ago. It's this fascinating matching game where raw technological capabilities are being mapped straight onto fundamental human needs. Which leads us to part 4, the double-edged sword, the major risks of AI implementation. So the crucial point here is that we have to flip the coin for a minute. While this tech is incredibly promising, implementing it definitely comes with some very serious, very real risks. The UN Global Compact explicitly warns about this, stating, "Artificial intelligence is not a silver bullet, but it is a catalyst. It's going to dramatically speed up our transition, yes, absolutely, but only if we have thoughtful implementation. Without clear, intentional governance, AI could actually set our global goals backward." The source material actually outlines 4 severe risks that we've got to navigate. First up, bias and discrimination. If an AI model is trained on historical data from just one demographic or region, it just won't work fairly for others. This can inadvertently skew who gets approved for a microloan or even how medical resources are distributed. Second, surveillance. Using AI for rapid public monitoring can super easily blow the lines, overstepping into major privacy concerns if it isn't strictly governed. Third is labor market disruption. Rapid automation poses a huge, disproportionate threat to low-income and marginalized workers, especially in the global south, where there might not be a strong economic safety net to help workers transition into new roles. And finally, there's a massive environmental impact. I really want to highlight this last point because, honestly, the irony is pretty striking. The energy use of these massive large language models significantly contributes to carbon emissions. To put this in a perspective, generating just a handful of high-quality AI images can consume as much energy as fully charging your smartphone. And training a single foundational AI model, that can literally require hundreds of thousands of gallons of fresh water just to cool the server farms. So the very tool we're hoping to use to solve our climate crisis has its own massive environmental footprint. If the compute power isn't managed sustainably, AI could actively harm SDG 13 instead of helping it. Let's look at how we fix this in Part 5, Leading a Sustainable Future, Actionable Steps for Professionals. So what do we actually do about all this? Well, the UN Global Compact provides a super clear framework here. If you're a leader or a professional watching this, here is what this looks like in practice. Step 1, upskill your teams. Organizations need to build digital fluency right now, making sure employees understand how to use these tools effectively and, more importantly, safely in their daily workflows. Step 2, embed AI metrics into your environmental, social, and governance, or ESG reporting. This dramatically improves transparency, letting stakeholders know exactly how much energy your tech is consuming and how it's being managed. And step 3, foster multi-sector collaboration. A really great real-world example of this is a business actively partnering up with a local university and a city government to make sure an AI system actually serves the entire community equitably, rather than just operating in some isolated corporate silo. As we look toward that looming 2030 deadline, I want to leave you with this really provocative thought straight from the UN text. The challenge before us lies not only in what AI can do, but what we choose to do with it. Tech provides the speed and the scale, sure, but human agency and human choices provide the direction. We have a shared blueprint, we've got the tools, now it's totally up to us to build the future responsibly. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and I will catch you next time.